Hello and welcome to Below the Curve Gaming. My name is Ben and today I'm going to be unboxing the start of my Hail Caesar army, and I'm using a Roman army list using the Marian Romans, so post-Marian reforms. And this is the starter set I've bought from Warlord Games, which is the Caesarian Roman starter set. Comes with 2 units of 24 legionnaires with gladiuses, 2 units of legionnaires with Pilums, a metal scorpion, and then a foot and mounted officer, and some transfers. This is the box it comes in. I've already opened it up just so I could check what all the sprues were inside. So it comes with some art on the side. Some information on other available models within the Caesarian Roman range, and then the same art on the other side and the general on this side. There's no instructions within the box. The base of the box is blank, and so you just have to kind of build them as best you can from there. Sometimes you see instructions in the inside of boxes or as a separate pamphlet, but not in this case. So the box comes with 3 stands of bases, which are marked with Warlord Games on the bottom, and they do have these kind of studs which hopefully on a mat and that will mean that they don't slide too easily. And it's a selection of different kind of multi-bases. There are some individuals if you want to put them individually to then kind of bulk up sides of units if you need to, or these main 9 stands here are 40 by 40 millimeters, and you can probably fit 4 legionnaires easily on them. I'm not going to put any more than that. I think that's probably enough to kind of bulk out my units, and then you can put stands together to kind of create standard sized units or small sized units for the Romans. I'm using them as standard size units with the Marian list, so I'm going to be using 160 millimeters as my standard size unit front, which will be 4 of these bases, each with 4 Romans on it, and I'll probably only keep them kind of 1 base deep, so it'll be kind of a line of 8 by 2, so 16 units per 16 models per unit. You do get some multi-bases and individuals, so you could use these for skirmishers if you so chose, or as say to kind of bulk out the side of units. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be putting my skirmishers on round bases as yet, so I'll kind of come back to that. You get 3 sets of these. Show all of them there. And then you get the models themselves. Now the box is overflowing, and since opening it I haven't managed to actually fit everything back in together. So I'll take out each bit and I can show you each sprue and what you get within them. So going through each of the sprues, which are all stacked up here, you get 10 of the sprue with gladiuses, which are 4 models to a sprue. And the sprues themselves are very similar. The majority of them, or the bulk of the sprue, these first kind of 3 sections of it, are duplicated across every sprue that you get in the box. So you get your scutums, Roman shields, 4 of, including one with a pilum attached. You get 6 individual heads, all of which the details look very nice on. They've got quite kind of rugged looking expressions on them, and I think they would paint up very nicely, probably take shade quite well. So that's 3 of them there, and then a further 3 here. Wee bit of flash to them, so we'll need a bit of cleaning up. And then you get the 4 bodies for the legionnaires. So these are the front of them, and I'll show you the back in a second. So 4 bodies there with a bit of base attached to them, so you can kind of cut them out. You could use them like that, but obviously I'm going to glue them onto multi-bases, but it means there's something solid for them to stand on whilst you're painting them. as well. I'm not going to cut the legionnaires off these bases. I'll just glue these straight onto the multi-bases, and then I can build up the kind of flocking basing material around them. Probably using the Games Workshop textured paint and possibly a wee bit of filler or something similar to kind of give it a bit of substance. And then you've got the bits that are different in each of the sprues, so which is the weapons. So for the Gladius armed legionnaires, you get 4 Gladius, 2 slingers, which I'll come back to later because they'll be really handy, and then some pouches to go with the slingers. So that's it there, and all of them right arms, and they'll attach just into the shoulder areas on each of these individual legionnaires. So the back of the sprue, so the shields with that spare pilum attached there, they all look quite clean, and they've got the kind of space to then attach to the kind of knuckles or to the hand of the legionnaire himself. These 6 heads from the back all look like they've got a very similar join there, and then the legionnaires themselves. So they've got the dagger, and then they've got a sheathed gladius modelled on, which is a bit disappointing in some ways because it means that they're going to be holding one in their hand plus having a spare on their belt as well, which I'm not convinced that they would have had. I could go and try and trim the handles off each of the scabbards, but I'm not sure if that would actually work. Judging by some of the attach areas to it, I might end up with some kind of blank space that would then have to green stuff up to fill it back in. Bit of flash on these as well, some mold lines, so I'm going to have to do quite a bit of cleaning to them. And then the back of the arms here as well, and the back of the kind of pouches for the slings. So that's the Gladius equipped legionnaires. As I say, you get 10 identical sprues, which will make 40 legionnaires, and then there's some command sprues to make up the extra 8. So 10 of them. On a whole, I think they look really nice. The details are very characterful. I think they've got a certain look to them. It's a more heroic scale, I think, than some of the kind of true scale or that where the heads and arms would be a bit thinner. So I think that they'll look good on the battlefield, and ranked up they'll certainly should kind of have quite a good look to the unit, quite kind of characterful. So the second set 10 sprues in the box are the Pilum equipped legionnaires, and if you look at these, they are just identical to the ones with Gladius. The bodies, the heads are all the same, and the shields. The only difference is the Pilum arms here. So you're getting 4 Pilums, no extra kind of baggage or anything like that, and most of them look like they're held kind of throwing. There's only this one here which looks like it's held kind of upright. So flip these over, and you can see the kind of poses that potentially you would get from them. That's the upright one there, a throwing arm, what looks like a kind of more stabbing or kind of readying to throw, and same again there. Look nice quality, they look very sturdy as well. I think that they're not necessarily going to break easily, which is always a consideration with kind of spears or kind of thin javelins that potentially with sitting either in a carry case and kind of catching on foam, or if you're picking them up and that you could end up snapping them. These look pretty sturdy, so I don't think they're going to have that issue. They're not as precise as you would get with a kind of true scale model, but I think actually they look quite menacing or quite dangerous. The weapons, you wouldn't want one of these puncturing you, so I think they'll look really good on the battlefield. So that's the Pilum. That's the Pilum equipped legionnaires. As I say, 10 sprues of these. Yet again, very similar quality to the Gladius armed legionnaires. I think what I'm going to do is mix the two together. I'm not going to have units of just men with gladius or just pilums. I'll put the two together and then they'll become more of a mixed kind of look to them. So the third plastic sprue that you get within the box set is the command sprue. And there's only 4 sets of this, which makes up the extra 8 models per type of legionnaires, so pilums and gladius, or the 4 to make it up to 2 units of 24 each time. So, yet again, the first kind of sections of the sprue are identical, so nothing new there. It's just this bottom section that's different. This is kind of the back of everything, so I'll show you the front in a wee second. But you get quite a nice looking standard. These are greaves for I think the standard bearer. I'll show you them on the other side. 2 small circular shields, a trumpet, or it looks quite like a vuvuzela, and a few gladiuses, a main kind of wolf cloak, and then some heads there as well. So I'll switch these over. So there's the 2 shields, and then the gladiuses and the kind of cloak or mane of pelt, and then the trumpet. And then you've got these 2 greaves, which look quite nice. I'm going to have to glue them on top of the shins, but it looks like they should fit quite nicely on. And then the standard there as well, which I think might be an ox. Don't think it looks like a boar, so maybe an ox. And then the 3 heads, which are all quite nice. I quite like this helmet in the middle, which I would use as, I'm not sure if I would use it as a centurion or just maybe to denote a kind of division leader or that kind of unit leader within each block. And then you've got the 2 kind of pelt head to go into the units as well. So 1 for the trumpeter, 1 for the standard bearer. So that's the plastics from the sprue. Yeah, again, they all look quite nice. They are going to look very similar across the board. They've got only the 4 body types and up to a maximum of 9 different heads, and then the weapons are generally 4 different weapons as well. So there will be a lot of similarity across the unit, but I think mixing them up with maybe some of the Victrix models and that might then give a bit of variety to them and break them up. It also depends on how you position them amongst the multi-bases. I've seen people kind of creating more diorama style bases which look really nice, and I've seen ones of just kind of ranked up troops which still look pretty imposing, which I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that bit as yet, but I'll come to build them later and then see how they turn out. So the final models that you receive within the starter box are metal, and that's the scorpion bolt thrower and the foot and mounted hero or general. They come in a wee pack like this. So I'll dig them out from here and we can have a look at them. Okay, so here's the scorpion bolt thrower and there's the 2 crew. They look very similar to the plastics, yet again quite deep kind of facial features that would pick up some washing quite nicely. Same with the chainmail. The rivets and that look to be sculpted very kind of deeply, so that'll pick up some good kind of null and oil style shade. And then I quite like this kind of basket of the bolts on this one as well. The pose is quite nice. He's kind of got his hand on his gladius there, and the hair looks quite good on his helmet as well. Turn that round for you. So the detail looks sharp. They're not the greatest models, but they're very serviceable for the style of game it is and the type of models that you're going to have in these games. And I think once they're painted and based up, they'll look really nice. And that's the loader, as it were, and this is your kind of commander, or kind of the person in charge of firing the Scorpion. So it's quite a nice pose. Quite nice details to them, not the sharpest in some ways, and that's part of the thing with with metals versus the plastic models. However, certainly serviceable. I have ordered a second one of these Scorpions, but I've ordered it because it was the same price. I've ordered the SPQR one, which comes in resin, so it'll be nice to compare the two and see if the detail's sharper in the resin or if it's just a kind of exact mould of this. The model is the same posing and that, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how they put that together. And then this is Scorpion itself, so the kind of front of it, quite a bit of flash on these, so they will need a bit of cleaning up. There was some mould lines on these crewmen as well, and then the Scorpion itself, which does look quite bent and out of place at the moment, so it'll need a wee bit of teasing back into shape. And the bolt on it looks pretty good. Did wonder if it maybe needed a bristle or kind of fletching at the top, but maybe not actually. I think they just look to be top and bottom, as opposed to kind of 3 or 4 kind of fletchings on them. So that's the Scorpion. We've got our general on foot. I'll see if I can get a kind of sharper view of him. It's maybe just a wee bit of light from the window. So it looks quite good, quite nicely detailed. Face isn't the sharpest, but it still looks quite nicely detailed. Yet again, the sculpting's quite deep. The detailing on the face, the expression, not as kind of angry or shouting as the other models, so he kind of looks a bit more confident or kind of serene maybe. So should be quite a kind of different look to him, which for the commander I do quite like. I don't think he should necessarily look as kind of angry or caught up in the war as the individual foot soldiers. Quite a nice hat, and his cloak looks good on the back. Legs got a bit of flash on them, or kind of mould lines, so he will need a bit of cleaning up yet again. And the hands are quite thick there, but I kind of was expecting something similar to this when I saw the model in the box, so I'm not expecting them to be as well detailed as some of the newer kind of Games Workshop models, or some kind of true scale type models. You expect these kind of more heroic models to kind of have a bit thicker hands and fingers, and heads a wee bit bigger than would be in proportion. And this is the horse for it, for the mounted general. It comes with the body of the general, just missing the arm and the head, which are separate to be glued on. Detail I don't think is quite as I don't think he's quite as highly detailed as the other models within it, but it will be different once he's kind of sprayed up, and that you can often then find some of these details that otherwise on the metal model can be a bit difficult to see. The kind of bridle and kind of horse equipment, as it were, looks quite nice. The horse itself looks to be in quite a nice natural pose, and I think it does look to be kind of a general that you would imagine is not on the front lines. He's more kind of surveying the field, as it were. So I think that's quite nice as Roman general options. I'm not sure if he's got shoes on. I think he maybe does. I was trying to work out if they were... yeah, it does look like there's boots there as well. And then a gladius or some sort of sword there. So that's the general, and that's his hat. So it's a wee bit difficult to see. detail's quite sharp on it, and it does have quite a nice kind of headrest or headdress to it, so he should be quite interesting to paint up. And then the arm to kind of attach to him as well, which just looks okay. Nothing particularly to write home about there. So I think the general, once he's built up though, will look fine. So that's the contents of the box in terms of models. Other than that, there's not really much at all with the box. You get some water slide transfers, which are these here. Now, I'm not going to use these. I've ordered myself some little big men ones to use instead, because I think these looked like they were just going to be a bit of a faff to put on. I don't know if you would have to cut them into kind of 4, because there wouldn't be the, or maybe at least 2 kind of down from top to bottom, because there wouldn't be the with the kind of shield boss in the middle, you wouldn't get it across. I assume that they would go that way, because I don't think the width of them, no, it wouldn't be big enough, so they must kind of go vertically on them, on the shield. So I think cutting them kind of down the middle, kind of vertically, would be the way to go. However, I just felt that I'm not massively fond of water slide transfers. I find that they're a bit of a pain to kind of put together, and you've got the potential of, if you muck up with them, you're kind of hitting finite numbers. The other thing worth noting with the water slide transfers is they don't look the same as the art on the front, and the models that they've got as example paints jobs don't have the water slide transfers on either, so they do seem a bit of an unusual kind of addition as well. So that's the Caesarian Roman starter army box set. So a load of sprues to work through. What I'll do is I'll build some up, and then I can add them on to the end of the video so you can see what they look like put together. The likelihood is I'm not going to glue the shields on at this point, because I want to spray the shields all in as one, and then put the Little Big Man Studio decals on them, as opposed to having to then try and fit them, particularly multi-based models, fit them kind of onto the back of the base. If I've got 4 to a base, try and kind of prise them onto the shield somehow. So I'm going to do them separately, then attach them. I may even build the Legionnaires and keep them separate until they're painted up and the shields are on them, before then attaching them to the bases and adding the basing materials there. I will be fighting against Ptolemaic Egyptians and some Celt, kind of Dacian type war bands, as it were, so I'm not quite sure on what basing materials I'm going to use as yet. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go towards kind of more of a desert with a bit of kind of grass tufts, or if I wanted to go towards kind of more like Highland type looking bases, but we'll come to that later once as a group we maybe make a decision on what we want our bases to look like. So that's the first bit of this video. I've got the Republican Roman Cavalry from Victrix and the Rome's Legions of the Republican Chainmail, also from Victrix, to show you next. So they'll be up shortly, and any comments or questions, just drop them below. Thanks. So I've built some of the contents of the Warlord game's Hail Caesar Caesarian Roman starter army, building a mixture of the Legionnaires with Gladius and Legionnaires with Pilum, plus then the metal models, the Scorpion and the 2 commanders. And I've also put a few of the command models together as well. As you can see, I haven't glued on the shields to any of them, and that's to help with the painting. So I've left the shields on the sprue, and then I'll trim them off and put them onto some sort of kind of stick or that, so I can spray them easy enough. There's quite a bit of detail that will be obscured by the shields, so I've decided to paint them separate. And you'll also notice that I haven't attached the infantry to bases as yet. The bases I've got are either the Warlord square bases, which will carry 4 legionnaires per base. It's going to be fairly cramped, but they should just about fit. I've seen obviously a lot of people are using these for them, so it shouldn't be undoable. It's certainly been done in the past, so it would be kind of 4. And then obviously the shields would go on to kind of block them off as well. So I'll need to wait until I've glued the shields on and then place the models onto the base after that. I have made some bases of my own which are 3D printed 80 by 40, and they've been slightly warped at the bottom. However, the actual shape of them is still pretty sharp, so they should do well enough for the 80 by 40 to hold 8 models, and I'll probably use them build plate side to the top, because then they'll be quite smooth to the bottom, and the build plate, the kind of lines and that will be hidden by the basing materials I put on top. So look a wee bit rough at the moment, but they'll be fine once they're painted up. So I've got a stack of them so far, and I'm likely to print out more, possibly a few extra ones to replace some of the ones which are warped a bit more than the others. You'll see I've also done a 60mm round base to hold my scorpion, and I've actually glued the scorpion down onto the base at the moment because I needed somewhere to try and keep it all together. And to see if the actual models kind of fitted, because the commander, I suppose, the one with that's attached to the scorpion, this one here, he wasn't necessarily fitting into the, I think his hand's meant to kind of be holding some sort of winch type bit at the back, and I had to glue him in to see if it would actually fit. So looking at some of the models then, so starting with the gladiators with, the legionnaires with Gladius, see if I can focus. The models are quite nice. There was quite a few mold lines on them, and I've trimmed them off, I think, pretty well. There's one actually, this one I'll need a wee bit of a tidy up just down by its foot there. I've trimmed the hilt off the Gladius in the scabbard on his belt, and that's just because otherwise he would have 2 Gladiuses, one in his hand and a second one in his belt, and I didn't think it looked that good, so I thought I would have it that he's taken the Gladius out of his belt. So I've trimmed the handle off there, and as I say, I've still got to put the shields on. So the detailing's really crisp. The expressions are very nice on the model as well, and the pose looks quite good. It's a bit strange putting them together because the heads only really go on one way. However, one should twig that they're looking kind of where the shield would be, and they're kind of looking straight forward, as it were. Then it's actually not that tricky. At first I thought the shield was going to be slightly more to the side, so I was trying to twist the head a bit more than it really should have been. So once I got used to the kind of pose of them, they were easy enough to put together. So I've built up a stash of them. I've probably got about 6 bases built so far, 6 bases of 8. So I'm not too far from, well, I'm about halfway from completing the force. So that's the Legionnaires with Gladius. So the Legionnaires with Pilums had much the same issues as the ones with Gladius. The Pilums themselves did have a bit of neatening up to be done, bit of mould line removal, which from 1 or 2 of them kind of seemed to shave this kind of block of the handle off a wee bit more than I would have liked. So most of them are pretty much intact. The Pilums themselves generally are angled to be fighting around the shield, but there's a few that look like they're at slight jaunty angle, which I'll need to see how they look once the shields are attached, and it might just be that I put them to the back of the unit. But generally, pretty straightforward to put together. Next models I built were the command models. Now this is a musician and he's got the greaves that you'd add separately. Now I think these greaves are actually for the standard bearer, however I was building the standard and the knees that I put on the standard, or the model that I picked, didn't actually fit the right greave, unfortunately, so I've had to just attach the greaves to the musician on this kit, which wasn't ideal. You only get one of the kind of back cloak things, and I'm not sure if it's meant to go, which head it's meant to go on, because both of them have a bit of a gap here if you don't attach it. So I'm thinking maybe a bit of green stuff would be the way forward with the musicians, just to neaten it up. He'll need a wee bit more trimming because there's a big mould line down that arm as well. They're okay. I wasn't particularly sold on them in some ways. The pose of the models are quite hunched over, and the way that the musician or the horns held on this one, you kind of want his heads at an angle to try and kind of match the end of the horn to his lips, but unfortunately posing on a lot of them, it just looks like you're kind of forcing the head almost in to try and catch it, and I think this is the right head for him as well. Yet again, without any instructions for how to build it, it's a wee bit difficult to work out, but they're not bad, but they're just not as nice as it could be in my mind. It's a few mould lines on this one actually I'll need to neaten up, so pop him back to the front of the queue. Then the last plastic that I've built is the standard bearer, and actually I quite like the standard, kind of ox there, and the, a bit of a mould line on his cloak as well. I need to tighten that up. The cloak itself fits nicely with the helmet and the wolf kind of fur around it. And as I say, I managed to get this left leg, the greave on it, but unfortunately this right leg here, the greave gets caught by the gladius in its sheath. So you can't use this model if you're wanting to give him or this body and legs if you're wanting to give him the greaves, which is a bit disappointing. So if I'd planned on kind of dry fitted them first, it would have been better, but I'd already glued on the arm, the back kind of cloak, and the head. Now I could have taken the head off easily enough, could have taken the arm off, but because I'd put the glue onto the back of his chainmail, I was going to lose quite a bit of detail. So I needed to just stick with him without the greaves, and put the greaves on the musician, as I say. What I'll do in the future is I'll just plan it a wee bit better first. I'll know, obviously I've got another 3 packs of them, I'll know for those ones not to do it that way. And they're going to sit in the back rank on my bases. I think what I'm going to have is one of these in the back rank, top left as it were on the base, on the rightmost base, and the other one I'll have top right on the left base. So then the two of them will sit kind of in the dead centre of the unit, kind of either side on the back rank. So that's the standard. There's one last plastic model actually that I forgot I'd built, which is the kind of, I'm not sure if he's not a centurion necessarily, it's got a bit of mould line I need to cut off as well. But he's the kind of sergeant, I'm not entirely sure the name of them, the leader of the unit anyway, and from watching Rome, I think I'm going to place him in the, going back to my kind of bases, he'll be in the bottom left corner of the leftmost base, kind of where we see Varenus in the episode of Rome where he's got his whistle and kind of whistling forward the troops. So I think that's probably how I'm going to place him. And he's got this quite nice helmet with a kind of almost Greek look to it. Although it's a bit strange because actually it's not, by the looks of things, a visor that falls down in front of it. It's just a full helmet. But looks quite nice anyway. Yeah, again, it's the same base model, just has one of the command sprue swords, which is no real different from the gladiuses and the legionnaire sprues, but just gets this bit fancier helm. So I'll trim off the last couple of mold lines on them, and then they should be ready to get sprayed. I'd say I'm likely to spray these individually and then paint them individually rather than paint them as a base. So what I'll need to do is find a way to attach them to like a stick, so maybe double-sided tape or some sort of, don't really have anything to magnetize them, maybe some blue tack or something like that, so I can airbrush a lot of them and then pick out the details from there. So that's all the plastics looked at. The command models, the metal ones, I'd looked at the sprues, and this is just the, or not the sprues, sorry, I looked at them in kind of component form. This is just the metal mounted one built up. It was quite nice once it was built. Just needs a bit of a spray to then pick out some of the details as well, or to be easier to view some of the details. The foot one, there's no real difference to, and this is a scorpion. Now the scorpion, there's the kind of hafts at the side of the bow bit of it are two different lengths, which is a bit disappointing. Otherwise it goes together quite well. These do look like they're bent slightly oddly as well, that they're not even. But the problem is I would need to try and green stuff the end of that side of it, and I'm not sure it's going to actually stay on. So I'll probably just have to cut my losses and accept it's going to look a wee bit disproportioned or kind of unusual sizes either side. I don't really want to trim this one down to match, because it then likelihood is I'll end up cutting too much off. The crew look quite nice and built up, and I'm going to obviously add some texture to the base to kind of build up around these bases, and that'll hopefully then kind of tie the basket more in with it as well. So a bit of kind of muddy field or something with some tufts of grass and stuff like that should do the trick. Scorpion itself went together alright, although it does look to be a wee bit misaligned, the actual, or a bit squint. So I'm looking forward to getting the resin version of it. I just think it might be a bit sharper. But all in all, it was pretty straightforward to build the box. It's just quite time consuming, a lot of mold line cleaning to be done, which is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. And not gluing them onto bases does mean that I'm going to end up then with a lot of models that are just sitting loose. So I'll have a pile of them until I start the painting. Hoping to do some painting next week to get them started off. But I'll build the rest of the plastics first so I can airbrush them in a 1A. So that is the Hail Caesar Caesarian Roman Starter Army box set from Warlord Games. I picked up the box set for $67.50 on eBay from Nanny Og. Normally comes in at £75 retail from Warlord Games. However, obviously I'd found it a wee bit cheaper online. I'm sure there's other places you can get it as well, but I had just gone on eBay when I'd been looking for some other stuff as well. So all in all, I think it's definitely worth the price. It's given me a good start to my force, and will hopefully fit in nicely with the other Victrix models which I've got. Just to add to these for the final wee bit, I've got two models from Hassle-Free Miniatures, and these are resin, and it's a female version of Obelix and Asterix from the comic books Asterix of Gaul, and I'm going to have these overseeing the battlefield, so they'll be on a 60mm base, I'm hoping for a bit of cork or something like that, so it looks like they're kind of on a bit of a hill or something like that. Thought it'd be quite nice as a bit unusual command group option. Now, model wise, you can take Gallic forces within the Marian list, so if I do add some, it won't look too out of place, and I thought it'd be quite nice just as something a bit different. I have ordered the SPQR from Warlord Games character models, both Arenas and Pulo, and then Pompey, Crassus, Caesar and Anthony all come in the box, and so I'll be able to use some of them. They'll come in resin as well, but I thought these could be quite nice. Size wise, they're about right scale. They're just a wee bit shorter for Asterix and a bit taller for Obelix. However, they are about the same kind of size of limbs and that as well, and heads, so they should fit in nicely enough with the force. And being on a circular base and a bit separate, and in that I'm going to put them on a bit of a raised platform, they should hopefully stand out but also be a bit separate from the rest of the force, so their sizing won't be quite as noticeable if they are just slightly out of proportion. So I will put up a video for the Victrix models as well, so stay tuned for that. I've got both the Legions of Rome, I think they're called, Rome's Legions of the Republic in chainmail, and the Roman Republican Cavalry models as well, or Republican Roman Cavalry models from Victrix. So I'll do a video for both of them, and you can see the rest of the force, and then once I've got it built up and start the painting, I can do a video log on how that's coming along. Please feel free to add any comments into the comments section, or any questions that you may have. I'll do my best to answer. And we're hoping to start a blog as well with our progress, so you should be able to see some photos and that for once I've got the models started in terms of painting, and I'll lay out the whole force as well. Thanks very much.